Hi, this is Stu, and of course we're at the lovely, beautiful Purple Valley, and today I'm here with Darby, which is great because we're having another themed interview, and this time we're going to be talking about forward folding. And we're going to cover a little bit about hamstring injuries, but also the technique of forward folding, hopefully maybe to prevent it happening, but maybe could give you some insights into working differently and that sort of thing. But first of all, I wanted to talk to Darby, and I want to sort of take you right back to the beginning of when you started. And first of all, ask you, were you sort of quite a flexible person before you started the practice, or were you a stiffy, like many of the teachers seem to have been when they first started?
Well, I was stiff, but I had the ability to be flexible.
Right.
So it was there, but when I started, I was, I remember just being so black and blue in the back of my legs. All the trauma that went through my hamstrings and legs came along.
And so where did you actually start doing physical yoga practice?
I started in Mysore.
In Mysore itself?
The only thing I did was somebody had given me light on yoga.
Right.
So I was in Goa at the time before I went to Mysore. And so I was just practicing on the beach in the morning from Iyengar's pictures.
Right.
And so that was the first bit I did. But apart from that, I really didn't even know what yoga was.
And so how did you find yourself in Mysore then? How did they drag you away from Goa?
Well, I was coming to Goa, and
Right.
I went through Mysore first.
Right.
And I decided that I didn't want to bring all my possessions to Goa because I heard things would be stolen.
Right.
So I left my passport, and those days in Goa was wonderful because I was in Arambul and Clearwater Lake, and
Yes.
there was no shops. It was just camping. Everybody was running around naked, and we just slept on the beach.
So you're going back, that's a long way back, isn't it?
That was 78.
78, yeah.
So it was when I came back in 2000, it was a shock. It was like shops.
Dramatically.
Like Arambul had one general store and a post office. I think that's all there was in Arambul those days. So.
And so you came to Goa first, or you went to Mysore?
No, I was in Mysore, left my bag, my passport there, came to Goa, and basically did the last of my flings. I wasn't going to do yoga until I was ready. I'd made the decision a few years earlier to do yoga.
Right.
But I'd still needed to come to Goa to do the Goa thing, the party scenes, the full moon parties, etc. And then that was over. Then I went back to Mysore to get my stuff, and when I got there, I said, "Okay, now I'm ready to start yoga. I'm ready to find a teacher. Where's a teacher?"
Right.
And I met this guy we called him Old Cliff Barber. And he said, "Well, I'm practicing, come and meet my teacher." So his teacher was Darby Joyce.
So did you have any idea of Ashtanga at the time, or the different styles of physical yoga?
No idea. I didn't even know what yoga was, really. I'd spoken to people about yoga and was, "Oh, yoga, yes. Oh, yeah, it's good."
Yeah. And is that what you thought you'd be doing when you got actually into the
I don't think I had any idea, because I just knew yoga was from India, and Indian yoga is a little different because they're more bhakti, and you could feel the yoga and the spirituality that was in the country, and that's what really brought me back to India for my second trip. And I said, "Well, I'll do yoga," but I had no idea it was going to be so physical and what I was going to go through. But same thing, I don't know why I stayed. I stayed there over the next 5 years. Me and my wife stayed there for 4 years.
Wow.
So it was
And did you have any breaks at all? Did you go? You just stayed in Mysore?
We stayed in Mysore. Guruji would occasionally. I stayed 3 months.
Right.
And I couldn't take it anymore. My body was broken and beaten up. Joanne was different. She just
excelled in it,
I was like the rabbit, and she was the hare, and she was the turtle, and she just plodded along, and I'd go and break. And so I took a month off and came back. And then, basically in the first 3 months we learnt primary series. That was the program.
The way it was done then. It was quite quick progression.
Yeah, everybody stayed 3 months, and they learnt primary, no matter who you were.
Right.
And he would adjust you, hold you, and whatever if you needed.
Yeah.
And then we came back, and then intermediate I learned in 2 months. It was very, very quick.
And the first days, when you first visit to the Shala, how many people were in there with you?
There was an English gentleman with a French lady, there was Old Cliff, and a German.
Wow.
That was like 4.
4 of you. I mean, nowadays people would find that really hard to imagine.
And then I became the 5th, then a French guy came with the 6th, the German guy left, so we're back again, and then Joanne arrived 1 week later. So it was a very small group. And in fact, times, there was just Joanne and myself. We were the only 2 students for months on end.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And for some reason we stayed there. I don't particularly know why, but we just...
Something grabbed you.
Just something was there, and what's amazing is the 2 of us arrived at the same time. We clicked, and we're still together.
All this time.
Yeah, all this time. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And so we're theming this about the forward folding. I mean, obviously, there's just only one little bit of what's going on, but what was your experience of forward folding when you first sort of started? Did you struggle?
Oh, I struggled, yeah.
Right.
But Guruji just pushed me down.
Right.
He was just pushing, and that's why, I was black here, then it would move to here, black, and there was just stuff happening. And I remember asking Joanne to give me a massage, and she touched me, and I just jumped. I couldn't do anything. And this was my first 3 months. It was after like the first week.
Yeah.
And it was just pain shifting in my body. So, but I think Guruji's technique was, which I've seen him do, and which he did for me for sure, was he'd push me into a position, and my body would go there.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was happening, so he'd just push it, and the body would go. The next day is where it got difficult, because my body knew what was going to happen, and then the resistance happened.
Yeah. And
then it was 2 or 3 weeks of resistance before you finally gave up again, and then wherever he was taking you, you could start to go.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of trauma in between, physical trauma.
But I'm talking to the guys here, that's not the way you teach yourself now.
Oh,
it
no,
seems
I'm
very gentle.
I'm very, well, I went through all that, but then I've changed, because I know a little bit more about anatomy in a way.
Yeah.
Working more with anatomy trains, which is more, much linear.
The continuity between one muscle and another.
Well, one muscle, one part of the body with the skin, all the way from the, forward bend comes from the toes to here, and it doesn't get broken anyway. As soon as you break it, then you've lost that continuity. So I've just worked ways of understanding that, and it's very different to the way we learnt forward bends. And when I'm looking at it now, and I see pictures of Darby Joyce and his forward bends, and I look at the pictures of Krishnamacharya and his forward bends, it's very much what I'm teaching.
Right. So for those that haven't seen those pictures, it's with more of a rounded spine.
Much more of a rounded spine.
Yeah.
And what they're working with is bandha.
Right.
They're working from, not up here, but way down just above the pubic bone, this bandha there, which really changes when you're holding that. And you hold there, changes the way you're going to forward bend.
Yeah.
And if you don't hold this, then you can just fold at the hips and do a pike basically, which then breaks the body in 2 anyway. It breaks the body from feet to hips, and then from hips to head, or wherever, shoulders, wherever you go.
So there's been a trend in forward folding to say, don't round the spine, lead with the chest. Obviously, maybe to avoid that. People just sitting up straight and just curving the spine.
Well, for beginners, if you're coming as a beginner and you're sitting back like this, the process is to get up straight and get the pelvis above 90 degrees to get the forward bend. And from what I can understand from the health industry, a lot of the forward bends was come like this, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, and they were really trying to emphasize the hamstring. Which, if you do this, it isolates the hamstring, and then you really feel it there, so they feel they've got to open up more. Whereas if you hold here, the continuation comes from the feet past there and comes up, and so you don't put so much stress on the hamstring anyway. But you don't feel anything.
And is there a fear that you might load the lumbar spine? I think that's why this original thing of coming forward with the chest.
Actually, you're not loading it, you're releasing it. In fact, this is going to load the lumbar spine more than... as a beginner, no. A beginner, you're coming like, if you're back here and you're coming, then it's going to load the lumbar spine for sure. But as soon as you get past the 90 degrees, then the movement changes. You don't have to worry about the lumbar spine anymore. But I just think that this kind of concept came and everybody started doing it. A lot of like monkey see, monkey do. So, and that's basically what I was doing. I was learning, even though Guruji was teaching me. He wasn't giving me very much instruction because he didn't speak English.
Right.
You know, in those days, very little English.
Yeah.
You know, good man, bad lady, $20, $5 fine. Just.
So what did you get fines for?
Well, if we were just joking, you know, he would say something if you did something wrong.
Okay,
or,
yeah.
You know.
So you didn't actually get fined.
No, we would just say it's kind of, and that stuck with him. Everybody knows that. It's part of his humour.
Yeah.
You know.
And so some people with their hamstrings, it seems like almost well, let's say the back of the body. We won't maybe focus just on the hamstrings, but their forward folding journey can be very, very slow. Yeah, it's almost that their body is resisting going forwards, and then for other people it happens very quickly. And for you, what was your experience? And then
it came quickly.
It came quickly.
You know, within, after 3 months I could do primary. I could do all the postures in primary.
Right.
There was no problem. I went through a lot of trauma in the body doing it because of the adjustments Guruji was making in those days. But once I had it, it was there. And then, the back bending came. So, I believe I was flexible. I just hadn't been into those positions.
Before.
Yeah.
And so when you counter, I mean, in your years of teaching, how many has it been now? I mean, we're
teaching maybe close to 20 years.
Yeah. So in that amount of time, you've obviously seen thousands of students. And
yes.
How do you, when you have somebody that has maybe even come to you, they've been practicing for 5-10 years, and they still are basically sitting up. They can't come forwards for whatever reason.
Oh, if they can't come forward?
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. It's very interesting. And quite often when I'm really just experimenting with this in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Just trying to find out where they're breathing.
Right.
Quite often they're not breathing down here. They don't get the breath into the pelvis.
Right.
And they're breathing more up here.
Yeah.
And they just get stuck. There's no release of the tension in the pelvis, and they just create more tension. So I've been looking at trying to get people to bend forward, and I'd come in and play with a psoas, and I'm actually with Carolyn doing it now.
Right.
She's going through hell. But it really is that she's not breathing down here.
Right. And
because the breath's not going there, all that creates tension in that area. Whereas so you can start to breathe there, and then you're going to release the tension, and then it's going to soften, and then. And that's what I'm finding, is I come in and I just come down and get people to feel where they need to breathe, and then they just, it lets go. They just manage to go forward.
And so when we're thinking of breathing, we're thinking of taking the focus down there?
Definitely. The breath starts there. Even though we're only breathing in the lungs, we're, especially in the Ashtanga, in normal breathing they want you to breathe the belly going out, and it's a big thing to let the belly go out. But in Ashtanga we are doing this gentle, this holding, and this holding, it's toning, it's not tight, it definitely shouldn't be tight, but a toning that just lets all the organs come and lift up. So the breath is here, and as we breathe we let it come to the back of the body and come up. But it's got to start in this area. And if we don't get it there, if we're starting up here, then the tension can come there in the pelvis.
And do you, so the big thing for a lot of people seems to be the sit bone pain or yoga butt, unfortunately they've even named it now. So do you have an inkling as to why that is happening with practitioners?
With sit bone pain? It could be they're just starting to tear the...
So what makes them vulnerable? Yes, so what's happening?
Just bending like this.
Right.
You've shortened, you're only working from here. The connection now is here. So you're coming here, pulling, and it's just, and a lot of people want it because now they feel the hamstring getting torn, getting a little trauma is getting a stretch. And if I don't get that feeling, there's no feeling. I need to find that feeling, and it's not a feeling you want.
But it happens with advanced practitioners and new beginners, and
again, if you're looking at everybody doing this in your practice, then you're going to want to do the same thing. In my school, I'm getting everybody to do this. I never want people to reach around at all.
Just to hold with their...
hold.
Actually, I seem to remember a very, very light hold, so almost just
this.
Fingertips.
Exhale, just fingertips, exhale, inhale, let it relax, exhale. It's enough if you have, again, correct connections, which means the shoulders back and the shoulder girdle coming in. That connection from there will come and connect to it. In fact, it'll be all the way to your feet. So you just get that, and that's your connection, and that's all it is. And that's for holding. But you need them that'll allow you then just to go.
To come forward.
To come forward.
Yeah.
And so that's really the secret. And then it changes. As you're holding here, then this comes over into the back. So you have a much, much longer range of motion.
Yeah.
Because you've taken it from here now, and not just from there to there.
And so, what about for some people that we were talking, I know before off camera, about the balance as well in the body between the front body and the back body can also be a little bit of an issue.
Oh, you were talking about back bends, or?
No, you were talking about the strength of the quadriceps,
the quadriceps
relative to the hamstrings as well.
Yes. So again, that's a great problem for a lot of people. And basically it starts as children. So when you have the opportunity to stand up, you can either stand up from your heels, which means you engage quadricep, or if you come up from the front of the foot. If you come up the front of the foot, you use much more of a leg. And I experiment this with students. I have them squat, stand on the heels, stand up, squat, come up from the front of the toes.
Yeah. And
at the beginning I have them just squat and come up. And then I say which one is comparable to the one that you normally feel.
Yes.
And then I get different results. And it's generally when you're coming up from the toes, it's much less pressure. And you don't use the quadricep, there's less tension in the knee joints and the hip joints.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to people in the East, like maybe it's changing now because Indians are sitting on chairs.
Yes.
But if you're getting up from the floor like this,
yeah,
it's a very different action that puts you more weight on the front of the foot.
On the front of the foot.
So you don't get dominant in this.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. When you're dominant in this, then you're pulling here. And even when you're bending the legs, if you have dominance there, it starts to tear the knee joints or even in the groins. So. And again, I discovered this when I had people with injuries.
Right.
And realised that how much they were creating tension. And when I released the tension, then the pains disappeared.
And so, for those people that experiencing the beginnings, because sit bone pain can be ongoing for a long time, can't it? You know, it can be a 2-year journey if you're not careful. Yes. So, and I always say to people, the moment you start sensing something, then change
for sure.
Before it's too late.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest for people that are just getting that niggling feeling now that hasn't progressed, but they want to practice? What should they do?
I show them how to bend forward.
Right. And we're going to do that in the next part two.
I just show them, and I go, basically I'll sit with somebody and I'll sit in front of them and have them pushing my hands, so they're pushing.
Right.
And just push to come forward.
Right.
Exhale, push, and that again connects to here, opens up the back, and gives you that rounding effect. And then they feel that. As soon as they feel that, they go, wow, I feel space in my back. And I feel like I'm grounding, and I actually feel my lower abdomen coming in. And straight away, not everybody, but hopefully, if I'm doing that with somebody who's folding like that, I'll take them into my class and do that. Then I see their reaction, and see how they want to, react to that. If they feel it, if they're willing to understand it, want to make a change, then I'll just show them more and more stuff. That's generally where I start.
And do you have because I mean, a lot of us have different postures that we really feel comfortable in, and really, my favourite posture is double pigeon, which is not in the Ashtanga series, but it's fire log posture, whatever. For some reason, I just really like it, and to fold forward and like that. Do you have a forward folding posture that you actually really just feel so comfy in, or just
probably Paschimottanasana?
Paschimottanasana.
It's a great posture.
Yeah.
Actually, the one I like is Janu Shirshasana.
Yes, the A version.
Yeah, just A or B. B is excellent, both of them.
Yeah.
But I'm doing them very, very differently. Is that I'm really coming in and I'm actually doing Baddha Konasana B.
Right.
In it, so I'm really coming over and bringing the head down.
Okay.
So I really work that way. And it's such a powerful posture.
Yeah.
They talk about it as Mahamudra. So Mahamudra is all to do with the spine, all to open up the spine. So that's very, very powerful.
And more of an uplifting.
Yeah, it's uplift, and you're coming over, and head is down, and if you're going to do retention of breath, excellent.
Yeah.
So that would be one of my favourite, especially, and then sitting on the heel
is
even better, because now you're really working the perineum, and there's as you create this action, there's a downward motion of the perineum on the heel, and of course the opposite action coming into the body. So.
And seeing you sitting there, you've got your foot running down basically near enough in the same direction as your leg, or your bottom foot.
Oh, this one I do just turn it about way.
Yeah, and when you sit on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I square the hips more.
Square the hips.
I'm not really out like this. I'm trying to come in as a forward bend.
Yeah.
Not trying to make it a twist.
Not opening as much as possible. Yeah.
Again, I'm working on the energy that's in the spine.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at, this rounding to come forward.
Because that foot position does change quite a bit, doesn't it? And
it does. If you have the, what I'll do to people is, if I have a foot like that, I ask them to try and lift off the foot and see what they feel.
Yeah.
And do this way and push up and see. And this gives you much more connection inside. So that's what you want compared to this. This is more like as you push the body sinks down. This one, the whole body inside lifts up.
Engages.
So that's why I prefer that.
And do you see a different foot position in some of the deeper forward folding? So like sometimes people talk about a pointed foot in maybe Upavishta Konasana or some of the...
Very much
like
this
that.
is what I want all the time.
So that in between. So
it's just reaching, and if you do this pointed, what happens to the calf muscle? It jams in, it holds and tightens. This opens up the muscle. So now energy is going to flow through there. Whereas this is a blockage, this is opening up. So that's what I look at.
So a little bit more an active foot, but not.
Yeah, I do the same with the hands. Just slightly active, nothing stretched out, but just reaching. And again, you can feel it. If you do this, you feel what happens in this muscle.
Yeah.
And then you let it open a bit. This opens up.
And the drawing back.
Well, it's just energy for flows.
Yeah. And with the standing forward folding, sometimes there can be a tendency to take the weight too forwards or too back or whatever you... It's a whole thing on itself.
Well, it's when you're lifting, and the same motion I'm using, it's here. If you hold here and this stays in, this rib's actually going to move in slightly and come down. Well, it's not actually going to move that much, but it feels like you're going to be doing this. It's not that extreme, but it's just here, and as soon as you exhale, that motion happens. And there's the initiation. So there's that slight rounding again as you come down. And it makes a difference too. If I'm coming forward and standing, I see a lot of people come in, they want to get the head to the knee, and they suddenly go like this. Whereas I'll come in and I'll bring the ribs in more, and my whole body will come in closer. And I don't have to lose this connection, and this connection of the head going forward should remain. I don't want to start doing things like this. Not even neutral. I guess it's neutral, but in a way that it's leading. There's this connection. The head's going to take you, and it doesn't matter what direction the head goes. It's going to bring the body. Whereas if you start doing this, the head can move, but there has no connection to the body. So I'm very much watch for head.
And for some people, again, when forward folding is very much challenging, then they think, okay, I'm going to do a lot more of it and see whether that works because they've struggled. But quite often then that takes them back and they just land up stiffening up. So
again, it would be the way they're
doing it.
Their muscles are engaging, and maybe the way they're breathing. So there's a few things. But again, some people just aren't that flexible. So. But like I said, what I've been looking at is with the people I have in my studio in Montreal, and they're the ones that I work with and see for months on end.
So bigger chunks of time.
Bigger chunks.
You are on the road quite a bit, aren't you?
A lot. So when I get to see those people, I can look at them and try to adjust them and see how the adjustments work over a period of time. And
experiment.
They
are your guinea pigs.
Yes, which is like that's how you become a good teacher. You have
it's
guinea
a learning
pigs.
process, isn't it?
Learning all the time. But
and with your own body, because you've been practicing now how many years?
I started in 78.
78.
Yep.
And so if you had to change things as you've gone on, obviously you're experimenting in your own body as well, but is there anything dramatic that you've suddenly thought, God, I'm not happy with the way I'm doing this, I'm going to change this and do that?
Well, I've changed it anyway.
Right.
It's changed as I've gone along, but I can't. What's been has been, and what's happening now is changing, and I just find the change is better, and the yoga is actually getting better, and I'm getting less and less flexible. So,
because
forward bends I can bend forward, but but I don't, you know, I'm getting mature.
Mature,
you know,
yes.
More mature, so I don't have the strength and to do what I used to do, you know, so the back bending's not as good, but the yoga itself is better because I'm looking at it in a different way.
You're more sensitive and more focused.
Much more internal,
yeah.
Much more internal,
yeah.
And that makes a difference. That really makes a difference. And I'm doing much more pranayama and meditation, so that's more of a yoga that I'm into now, and I'm basically using the asana to make the pranayama and the meditation better.
Better, yeah.
So.
Brilliant. Well, I think now is a good point, I think, to take it into phase 2 and look at the practical, and that maybe will also make a little bit more sense. If you're not being quite getting the message, then Darby is going to show us. We've got a good candidate, Neil, which is coming in a minute. He's got a little bit of a hamstring thing going on, so you've been experimenting with him as well.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so we'll cut here and we'll phase in the next bit. So here we are with part 2, and Darby is going to put into practice some of that stuff that we were talking about in part 1, and we've got Neil here that's helping us. He's our duty manager and he's multi-talented. We have him singing, we have him doing all sorts of things. So now we've got him as our demo person. And so we're starting, what posture we're starting with, Darby?
We'll just do Padangusthasana.
Padangusthasana.
So it'll show the forward bending, and maybe I'll just get him to do it.
Okay.
The way he normally does it. And then we'll see what changes we can make. So, Padangusthasana.
You clown.
I was going to do Utthita Asta Padangusthasana.
Yeah, just Padangusthasana, just a straightforward bend.
Pay peanuts, this is what we get.
Oh, he's already improved since last week. So, what I'm looking for is, when I'm helping someone, or understanding, is first the feet.
Right.
So I know that the feet are correct, and you bring the skin up, it's going to come up here, and then it's going to come up and open up the back of the legs. And I know the direction. If I'm getting this action, it's going to just come up evenly on the leg. If something like this is happening with the toes pressing down, then it just becomes a front.
And then I could see that in your toes, but perhaps you could bring them here. So,
yeah.
So if we got more of a spreading,
it's just sit here and you spread your toes is enough. What I'll teach people is this: to bend my legs, lift the heels, and keep the legs straight, come down, and that should naturally happen.
Right.
But that's it. Then I have me here. What I'm looking at, one of the things I'm looking at is the shoulders. I don't want the shoulders there. I want the shoulder blades to come this way.
Drawing up the back.
They come up the back, and that will open up the chest for one thing, and open up the back of the body so the lungs can expand much more. Which is one of the things we're working with. But as this comes up and he pulls, this part of the body is going to go down. So this is what you're taking forward, not this. This is actually, relax, comes this way.
Yep.
In fact, he can just come here and actually push his knuckles into the floor.
So he's not pulling up on his toes so much as pushing his knuckles into the floor. If he pushes his knuckles
down, then I'm sure if you ask him, if we push down here, he's going to feel a connection right in the lower abdomen. There. And that's what we want. We want this there. This connection to be there, so when he comes up, he's actually coming up holding here. It's almost like he's going to do harakiri.
Right.
Exhale, when he comes up, harakiri here, and comes up, inhale, up. And then it's going to maintain a slight round of back as he comes up, and won't involve these muscles.
Okay.
So people will come up like this, and they come up, and all these muscles are pulling in, and it's actually crunching the back. Whereas what you want is to come up, and the abdomen stays in, and he come up, which means if we look at the movement of him going forward again, if he breathes in, and the movement, if he holds here and exhale there, and if we just get him to back up a minute, if he exhales here, the movement of this rib's going to come down slightly, and that's what brings him forward, and he'll come down. And now you can see how his back's open, and now the movement of what's happening to all this extension from here coming up is going to come up here and go over his body, and again the shoulders come back. Yeah. And then if he wants to go closer to his body, a lot of people will take the head in, as I was saying. You actually should just be able to come in with the ribs and bring the ribs up, and that'll take.
And when you feel the rib cage resting on the thighs, that's far enough. Yeah.
Well, yes, the rib cage, you can touch it. You don't even have to touch it. Just bring it in, but it's going to bring the chest much closer. Yeah. And avoid bringing the head in, because if he takes the head to his knees, if you can do, it'll really pull the neck in here. Yeah. And again, we're losing the ability to breathe into this part of the chest. In fact, the head should be going straight down.
Yeah, and actually it's quite a nice lengthener for the neck, isn't it, in this position, because the head is heavy.
Head is heavy, but you're reaching it. You don't let it just hang. You actually reach the head. You can actually, if every time he pushes the knuckle down, again he's going to connect through here, up through his leg. It's going to connect to here, and it's actually going to make him want to reach forward. Then he can use the head to actually exhale, squeeze, and actually reach down to the floor.
Reach the head down.
And then again, when you come up, the inhales come up and keeps this rib in. Then exhale, you can get the shoulder blades in position, and then harakiri, which I just hold him under, come up, rib stays in, and no tension in the back at all.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Where the weight in his feet there, was there, it was staying neutrally balanced between the front and the back?
Between the front and the back, always.
Yeah. Because sometimes we see the old hips being pressed back, weight coming into the heel.
The movement of the hips and everything going back is just the body keeping in balance with itself. So you're here, if you go there, but if you pull in, the hips are naturally going to go back to a certain point. I mean, even when you get here, now we're going to start to come forward.
Right.
So we're going to stay in balance all the time.
Right.
So.
And Neil, you had a hamstring injury at the beginning of the season, didn't you?
Yes.
And so have you noticed a difference working in this way over the last few weeks? I know it hasn't been as severe as it was at the beginning of the season.
Completely, in fact, because the injury was at the attachment up here on the sit bone. And Darby's method of spreading the toes and engaging from there seems to get an equal engagement through the legs rather than just jamming the quadriceps and lifting the knees. And this seems to be much more helpful.
Cool.
In fact, if you want to just bring 1 foot forward and step 1 foot back, as if you're coming into Purvatosana. And what I'll do to people here is I'll get them to bend the leg, and you could step back a little bit further, get a longer stance. And I'll get them to lift this foot up, then lift the foot, and don't put any weight on my fingers. Bend your leg. No, don't come up. Just bend your leg. And now from the heel, push back and reach, and now reach the foot down. And then keep that, and you can again see what's happening with toes, and then come forward. So again, it's coming here, lifting, and coming down, and I'm sure his hamstring just feels fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but your main thing is to keep it.
Yeah.
Keep it, and then come up and keep that same action of pushing and get the big toe can touch.
Can you let the toes down?
If you can reach this down, it shouldn't be so tense. But
yeah, don't be tense. It's because he's on camera.
And coming up, and this again coming in. So that will really, and this is a very good, for somebody who has torn a hamstring.
Right.
Even if they've got hamstring pull, if they work this way, there's no strain.
Right.
And then they have this very good learning tool, because every time they do it correct, there's no problem. If they let this kneecap go and it goes back into locking, they'll feel the hamstring straight away.
Right. So can you talk us through in slow motion, just for people that they can get that again? So we're starting at the feet.
There's two ways. One is I'll get them to, this is the other way. They first on the heel, and they don't put any weight on my finger. They bend the leg, and then from the heel, they reach back. And once they keep that reaching back, reach the foot forward, and then from there push, and then come forward. But the motion is again, as long as he's holding this, you can see how then it lifts.
Lifting here, so it's not just trying to hinge at the hip.
Not hinging at the hip at all. And you reach down, but it's also creating a muscle where you're working front, back muscle. And that's why it works. You're engaging the muscles back here, which are now protecting you by not allowing you to get into the hamstring and pull it.
Right.
So there's a protection. But if he lets this go, then straight away his old method of quadricep will engage, the hamstring here, no muscles will be there, and then he'll go straight in the hamstring. So it's important you keep it and then press and then come back up.
And then the other version, you said that's
and
one
the
way
other
of doing
version
it.
Is,
the other version is?
Some people like this one, they lift the foot and then push from the toe and push back.
Right.
And then lower the heel down.
Right.
And basically do the same thing. Come forward, hold in here, make sure this is holding in. You can see that he's got a little bit of a bulge there.
Is that too much good food here? I think that's what that is.
Yeah, but that's also that it's not, you can see that he's not used to getting that action.
Drawing
the pull
it in and up.
Comes in and holds in. So, good.
And the same principle, can it be used in, you were going to do Utthita Hatha Balangastasana at the beginning, can it be used in that same sort of thing with the standing leg?
Yeah, but again...
And what happens with the leg that's going in the air?
Again, the way that I'll teach it is instead of lifting the leg up, or I'll have people lift the leg and then just, if I put the toe down and then lift it, it releases here. But again, the spreading of the toes is there. Or if I'm going to teach them, I'll get them to hold the foot, press the heel down as if they're stepping upstairs, come to here, then extend the foot, and then reach the foot up. So they're not engaging the quadricep to straighten the leg. The foot is reaching. I was doing this with everybody the other day. I just had them to get the feeling of what's happening with the leg, was to get the feeling when you're doing this and reaching the foot, but actually as you reach, it brings your body with it. To get the feeling of that compared to engaging the quadricep, where there's no action, it just locks. Now the body there's no reaching. Because if you get the correct motion, it's going to bring your body with it, and that's what we're looking for.
Okay. And so can you talk through, Neil, from the standing position with your standing leg and into that, you would find a nice way of working?
Yeah, we work from this side. So what I'll have them do is bring the leg up on the knee on the inside of the arm.
And do we think about the standing leg first? What's happening with the standing leg?
If you're just spreading the toes, it's almost like you're going to jump. Feeling get that engagement, and I'll get him to grab the toe, then pretend he's going to walk upstairs, so he actually pushes down, and that will actually release his hip, drop the hip down.
And you like to come around the outside of the leg?
The knee on the
because
inside. That keeps the hip in alignment. If you take it out to the side, then you've got to twist it back here. Once he's here, come to there, and now before he does then just move the foot. So he has to have the ability to keep the ankle soft, relax. Just move the foot backwards and forwards. So the foot moves. And then you get to there, now you reach, once it's there, now reach your foot forward and follow it. And that's going to release in there. It's going to drop the hip. It also means you're not going to dominate with the quadricep muscle. Because the leg's reaching out. And then it's much easier to go forward.
We're putting him through his paces.
He's starting to sweat and his shirt's okay. It's enough, you can lower it down.
It's probably time you sat down, Neil. Come and have a sit on the floor. We'll look at some seated postures. We want to be able to use you again in other films. So with the seated, so we could start with Paschimottanasana, couldn't we? Because it's like the classic posture.
And again, what I've been doing to get this activity in the legs and also to connect here. It's pretty simple. I'll just get you to put your knuckles on the floor. And he's done this, and you just lift up, you lower down, you lift, and automatically lifting, the legs know exactly what to do. They're totally engaged in the way they need to. There's nothing hard. Then you lower down, take the hands up and try to lift. And you see what happens as a body. And now you see what's happening in here. And yet the legs are engaged because of the action that happened just trying to lift. They know exactly what to do. They didn't have to pull the quadriceps, didn't have to do anything, just knew the body just knew what to do. Once he's got this, then he just holds here and comes forward. And this holding here, and there's the forward bend. Comes in. And now you can start to see what's happening in the back, much more around it. Whereas when he was doing it last week, he came forward and he just reached out and pulled him in. You could see all his spine here, you could see all the trauma going on in his spine, starting to tear around this area instead of holding it together.
And you use a very light grip around the feet, don't you?
Usually I just, first it's the toes, I'd grab and just hold and squeeze the big toe. And if I'm doing the side, I actually teach this where the feet go out this way. And then you stop the movement going out. You just press out but hold it in, or you push in. So I'll do one leg and I'll say push my hand in, push in, just let it come in, and then I'll make him stop. And then I'll do the same on the outside. Push, and then do both at once. And that's so you're finding that neutral place, but activity on both sides. And you can do that by just pressing in but having a feeling of pushing out. So if I'm coming here, I can, on the side, I'm actually coming here, breathe in, and I actually push the hands in. And then on the inhalation, it's relaxation. It needs to just release. If I'm doing the elbows out to the side and we come down, I have this feeling, there's many variations, but one would be inhale, exhale, press down. So it would be press the elbow down. Inhale, relax, let it lift. Exhale, press down. So we just continue making this connection between yin and yang, between inhalation and exhalation.
And if you haven't got somebody to press against, you can still get that same action of pressing down, but
well,
against...
do it yourself. In fact, one of the last forward bend of the series after back bend, what I'll get people to do is grab the mat and each side of the mat and breathe in and actually push, try and tear the mat that way.
So
and that really
away.
Push away, breathe in, and this is amazing. If they push, it really pulls into the lower abdomen and really opens up here, and the legs press down. So all the good things are happening, and usually it just feels so wonderful, especially after a back bend. And that's where if I have somebody who I see coming in like a pancake, and I'll watch her practice and see how we're going, and then I'll come and try that with them at some stage, either in Paschimottanasana or at the end, and just see their reaction. And see if they, if they go, wow, that's very different, I like that. Then I know I can start adding more and teach them the concepts again, but teach them in different ways.
And how does this differ from somebody that is sitting up, that they're sort of stuck there, but then they round to bring their head down?
Very different, very different. It's a different process.
So how do we stop that from happening? Because that would be the fear. That
generally,
I
wouldn't mind using a belt.
Okay.
A belt for the
We
beginning.
have a belt, Nick. Can you throw us one?
Oh yeah, good.
They brought some stuff.
And it would be pretty simple just to get the belt and just have them want to try and sit up straight, and instead of coming forward like this, have them try and just bring the elbows back and bring the chest forward until they get to a certain place. And then I would allow them to start going down like that. But and I have students like that. I have one now I've been working with him, and I'm just, he's back problems. Total back problems, so it's just getting him to do this, and now I've got him like this, and just pushing in, trying to come forward. I mean, I'm allowing him now to come a little bit further forward. But it was a long time I just had him connecting and trying to come to get the pelvic tilt. So.
And if in that Paschimottanasana sequence, there's sometimes a lift up between each variation.
Yes.
So can you do that? So we had that engagement with the knuckles and the heels on the floor. Do you feel a different engagement if you lift all the way up in the normal way? Is it a different type of
What do you mean,
engagement?
jumping back to...
So if we went back to that Paschimottanasana, you can sort of put your hands here, can't you, and lift up and then go down and then you go again. Would that be...
No, that's not...
Would that be different to doing that?
Well, this is a learning tool. This is teaching people to get the feeling before then to get that lift. Once you've done this a few times, then you remember it and you just try to lift.
So not that you want to do it each time?
No, you don't do it all. At the beginning, yes, to
learn the pattern.
To learn the pattern, you do that, but after a while you don't need it. You just learn to sit. It's just this is a learning tool. It's a way of feeling it for anybody. Even this, just sitting here lifting, like I said, as soon as I lift, because my heels are down, my legs engage. And they're engaged in such a beautiful way. The whole leg knows what to do. It's not dominant anywhere. And yet I've managed to get this connection when I try to lift again. Then the sitting bones are going down to the floor, the whole back of the leg is going, but my body is lifting. And yet I've managed to hold this connection here, this little lower abdomen. And that's what's important. That's the important thing. This is going to stay. No matter what, it stays, and I come forward. And so this motion here, it feels as if I'm going forward. This is actually going backwards. But it's not. It's just a feeling that because of a holding there, the body's going over it. And that's what you don't get that when you end up coming here and doing this. Because as soon as this motion comes and this goes forward, this is lost. You've lost that ability. And then maybe you hold something else. You start squeezing other things to say, I've got to have bandha. And really it's not bandha. Bandha is really not that complicated. It's just that, lift, bandha comes, holding, not gripping, just holding, and then the forward bend comes.
From there.
And then the whole body is loose as it goes forward. And yet the bandha is a little bit tensed, not tense, but connected. And that's the place that allows you to go forward. So it's almost like, I teach you sometimes do harakiri, but don't. You're going to do harakiri in the last moment, you go, oh, no, thank you, and then forward. So, or even just throwing up. And a hiccup. So all those things come to the lower abdomen, and that's what you keep to come forward. And then it changes everything. And then it allows the whole back line of the body to get connected. So the back line is from here all the way up to here, coming there. So that's what you want. And again, that's the head, keeping the back line going.
Yeah.
Not this. Now it's only there.
And are there any postures that you would classify as forward folding? We'll take them out of the primary, shall we say, for the moment, that it's more difficult to re-establish that same pattern. It's a little bit more tricky because the legs, say for instance, Bhavishta Konasana, the legs are wider. Can we see?
Actually easier.
So easier because you're coming through the middle.
Well, again, you're going to have to, again, different techniques. One would be, I talked about the feet.
Yeah.
Well, the feet go back this way, push back, and the hands go forward. So I'll come to somebody and say, push back, and then I'll come to the hands and I'll push forward, and then I'll say, do the both together, push your foot back, hand forward. And again, that motion again is pushing in, it's going to connect you to there. And that's, again, forward bend, Upavista Konasana.
Yeah.
Not lift.
Yeah.
Not the flopping down.
Yeah.
So, but that, again, is the action, just push the foot back, whole leg engages, push the hand forward, as long as you have the shoulders in position. And this is important, the shoulder girdle in position is going to give us a connection into the whole upper torso, and the feet going back, going to connect through the pelvis, through the psoas, and basically meet at the xiphoid process. So we're all coming into the diaphragm, and they connect through there, and then we have the two connections.
It looks like it's very effective at getting the legs activated as well.
Oh, very much, without tightening anything.
Yeah.
Just push the foot back, push the hand forward, the leg knows what to do. Then if you want to create a little bit more action, you can, but you don't want to start locking in, and then the knees lock in. You know, if you see somebody's heels coming off the ground, it's like jump on them. Don't jump on them, but
in the traditional sense. No.
Hey, careful.
Yeah, don't go too mad.
Yeah, so it is very much this motion here, this coming in, and actually going backwards always, and not going back. It's just a neutral, but it's stopping you from going into this.
Into that.
Yeah, so and that rib, as soon as this happens, rib going forward, this goes forward. Much as people say, I'll have bandha, they don't have bandha. Bandha is this. And it doesn't have to be that. That definitely doesn't want to be tense. So.
And if we were talking about Janu Shirshasana A in the prelude at the beginning.
Yeah.
Can we just see that as another example of, you were talking about where to put the foot, because this is quite an accessible posture for many people, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is where I would put the foot in Janu Shirshasana.
Right.
And again, I'd go through the same process to say why we want the foot here instead of putting it like that.
Yeah. So what are your feelings on that?
We're talking more about B when it goes like that. And what I would again do is get somebody to push down and actually use this foot to lift this knee off the ground and lift up, using this foot and lift as well, and then lower down. And again, I get people to do that twice, lift.
Right, and to keep that activation.
And now lift the hands and try and lift again by using your foot. And again, you're going to start to feel as you lift what happens. The body lifts up here when you have the foot like this.
Right.
Compared to if the foot's there, you don't get the same lift. One is so that's why I prefer this. It's just more energetic.
So it's really for the energy rather than the positioning of the pelvis and the hip with that?
No, well, I like to do, Guruji always says 90 degrees, and I'm always saying, well, maybe he meant 90 degrees on the inside of the leg, not the outside.
Right.
So, but I prefer to have the pelvis square.
Yes.
So I'm not doing a twist, I'm coming up much more straightforward into the posture.
Yeah. And are you coming forward to the inside of this leg or bring the chest?
I come to the inside.
Come to the inside. That also
kind
keeps
of
it square.
I have a feeling, okay, I'm going to come forward in Paschimottanasana.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the same thing here.
All you're doing
coming
is moving
forward
the leg.
And moving the legs.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at more Paschimottanasana.
Yeah.
It just keeps that alignment in the body, allows the energy to flow.
Yeah. And then from that, I mean, I suppose it would be easy to look at Janu Shirshasana, Marichasana A.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because now we've got this leg.
Yeah, so it's an interesting posture, and again, you have man and woman, but when we look at the name of it, Marichasana, And this is something I only learned a few years ago when I was talking to a Vedic scholar. And he's saying, well, Marichi is one of the sons of Brahma, but he wanted to be brahmacharya. So the positioning of the foot is right into the groin, not out to the side, right into the groin.
Okay.
So it's more for brahmacharya to come forward. When I look at Krishnamacharya, that's where his foot is.
It's right in there.
You look at pictures of the Darby Joyce, foot's right in there. Not out to the side.
Okay.
So I used to teach it like this for a long time.
Yeah.
But now this is the way I do it. I'll let people do variations. And women, I kind of go, well, you don't have your genitalia down there, so maybe it doesn't work. So for a man, that's what I do. So it's right in.
Okay.
And even when you look at Krishnamacharya, if he wraps around and he holds here and comes forward, it's a very different forward bend.
Okay.
It's much more up here to come over, rather than going forward like that.
And Neil's got his foot pointing out. It looks like to try and keep it in line with where his knee is going.
Yeah, maybe we can, oops, sorry. So in here, doesn't matter, what's going to happen to his knee, it's going to go on an angle. Yeah. And people say, should we get this sitting bone on the floor? Yeah. Well, it's not possible. Because of the femur and the length.
The femur relative to the tibia.
But you're trying to get the sitting bone as close as you can to the floor.
So energetically, the pelvis is going
and
down.
And as you get the sitting bone down, it's really going to, again, the work is working from here to push it down. So you're going to get back to Bandha again. Yeah. So, and again, look at his toes beautifully. He's in 1.5 weeks.
He's a good student.
I've been listening.
Even though he hasn't been coming to all the classes.
Did you have to hit him with a stick at all to try and get him to correspond?
No, he's just been listening and a few adjustments, and he's receptive to the adjustments and seeing how good it feels. So that's what happens when you get a student like that. You just keep feeding them more and more, teach them as much as you can. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Darby. I think this is really, so play with these things and see whether that's for you. And maybe you'll want to catch up with Darby to get more details than we got on this little short film. But it gives you some different ways of thinking, maybe a different way of approaching things you might like to play with. And brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you, Neil, as well, for your help. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Darby.
Good.